Hey everybody, just want to welcome to the Restoration Valley family a new addition, a bouncing baby cat.
Which one's flat?
So roughly around May this year, this was delivered to our property. This is a Caterpillar High Flow 248 skid steer. It was built in the year 2000. I don't remember how many hours are on it, but I can say that it used to be a rental and it has seen its fair share of work. Big thanks to Dan for fixing this up, for Curtis for bringing it up on his trailer all the way from Iowa, and my dad for being the catalyst for this whole thing even being here. This is also going to be a learning experience for me. At the time of this recording, I'd say I've put in 20 to 30 hours on this machine. Nowhere near expertise level, and I have a lot of learning and working yet to go. Needless to say, but this is going to be a huge factor in all the goals that Katie and I have for the property and the barn. And having been in it for most of the summer, we're really reaping the benefits of having such a machine. I know not all folks can say that they can utilize this sort of tool in their work, and so I'm very thankful and appreciative that we're able to do so. Let's run through some quick stats here for the nerds out there. Operating weight of this skid steer is approximately 7,300 pounds. The 50% lift capacity of this machine is approximately 2,000 pounds. I don't know a ton about hydraulics, but the high flow designation allows for various attachments to this machine to be quickly changed in and out. Okay, we're here to take off this tire. This tire is flat, and it has gone flat previously. Like before I had it, this was going flat. From my understanding, from talking to people and my dad in particular, this is a notorious back right tire gets flat. Now I do know that there are tires that are foam filled that you can get. There's also tires that are not foam filled, but they're solid. I don't know what those tires are called, but skid steer tires and just tires in general are expensive. Luckily, I have a spare here. This tire is not like any of the other tires. These tires have been retreaded, and so they're different. And so I'm not going to leave this spare on for very long. I'm just going to leave it on long enough to get this tire fixed so we can get this one back on. Now, I'm new to skid steer owning. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm a novice, and so a lot of my information comes from YouTube. And there was a trick that I didn't know about when it comes to changing tires, and so I did all this really hard work of putting this thing up on jacks. And we all know that the rear tires are really hard to get to because that's where all the weight is. The diesel engine's in the back, and so it's really heavy in the back, and so it's super hard to get this part up. It's easy to get the front ones up because you can just put the bucket down and tilt everything up, but there's this trick that I didn't know about. So I did all the hard work of putting this thing up on jacks, and I didn't necessarily need to do that. All I needed to do was put a piece of wood in the back right underneath the weight of the engine, and then do the bucket trick. And what that does is it lifts everything up. Even these back tires get up off the ground.
Wow.
But because I've already done this, there's really no point in me doing that now, but it will be for something. It will be something for me to do in the future. Here's what I've got. I've got a 1-inch socket, and obviously this isn't going to be enough to get these nuts loose. So I got black pipe to use as a breaker bar, and hopefully that does it. So here we go. So my dad used to farm in Iowa in the 80s, and he has still left from that era a bunch of old tools. He brought up a corded impact driver for me with deep well sockets. So I'm able to now, instead of having to do it this way, I can do it a lot easier. So thanks, Dad, for that. Okay.
Are you gonna drive the skid steer after this? Are you gonna do that one trick, then lift everything up?
No, because I have. This is just how it's gonna be. I suppose. I don't know.
Are you gonna drive the skid steer around?
Man, okay. Now, I was always taught to tighten things in a star pattern when you're tightening lug nuts on a car tire. I don't know if that principle applies for skid steer tires, but I'm gonna think maybe just go on the safe side and say I'm gonna do a star pattern.
What does that mean?
A star pattern means that you tighten things star in a star. So if I start here, I go up here next, down to here next, here next, here, here, until I get all of them tightened down.
But how is that bolt already tightened right there if it's the last one?
Which one?
Which bolt's the last one?
Let's see, if I start here, that one.
How is this one almost good when it's the second last one?
I'm just hand tightening them right now. I'll do a final tightening with this and the breaker bar. Okay. I'm going to look up and see if these need to be tightened to a certain torque. Foot-pounds. I don't have the manual yet to this skid steer. I am looking for it and trying to purchase it. But every forum I've read so far has just generally said 150 foot-pounds of torque on these lug nuts. So that's what we'll start with. I will... After running it a little bit, I will just check to make sure that nothing's loose. I've seen on videos that some guys are tearing off these bolts and that does not sound like fun, so I don't want to do that. So I will check after I tighten them. I think I started with this one. This extension is just too short. It's frustrating. Gotta figure something else out. Okay, so I think what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to tighten them down really snug. Try not to over tighten them. My setup is just not allowing me to have good leverage and have a good seat on the nut. So for now, I'm just gonna tighten them down and then wait for the tire to be fixed and replace it again. Yay. So the goal here was to practice the trick I had talked about earlier. With the spare now on, I didn't want to go through the process of lifting the back end of this skid steer with a floor jack again. So instead, I opted to try out the technique I discovered on YouTube. I'll throw a link or two in there of the folks who showed me how to do this. It was at this point that I started to go through worst case scenarios in my head, and that's never a good thing. So instead of one chunk of wood, I opted for two, and trying to figure out the best position under the back end was difficult. The reason for the difficulty is the fact that I didn't want to end up tipping the skid steer completely back. In my mind at the time, putting the wood too far under would risk the whole thing free falling backwards with not a whole lot of options to bring it back level. Okay, the idea here was to, I think I had those logs sitting back too far. I need to scoot them in a little bit more. I was just worried I was going to tip back too far. But the idea here was to use the bucket, lift up all four tires all at once, get the jacks out from underneath, and then lift it back down and then do that. That was what I was talking about earlier about the little trick that I didn't know about. That wheel technically is off the ground. It might be hard to see, but that's the idea. I put two logs back there because I just didn't want it to tip or anything. I didn't execute it very well, but over time I think this will be a good solution for changing out tires. I just need to get better at it. So